good job of listening, and people see there's something different, and I want to learn more. And I know some of your congregations have been working on this. What do you do if somebody shows up on a Sunday, never been to church, and responds and says, I want to learn? What do you do? How do you help them learn the story without making assumptions that they already
after we fainted, did somebody
right.
else show
Yeah.
up?
What? Yeah, because I think even, and I really appreciate what you were saying, David, about even internal evangelism. And because all of us come from a Wesleyan background, so the idea of conversion isn't just a one-time thing. Yeah. It's every morning. It's deciding I'm going to try to love God more and love my neighbor more and be more like Jesus. And again, you guys have been doing some great work on this, I know, in your congregations, but how do you help people learn the story and who they are in that story?
That's a great question.
One of the things that's been, I think, helpful here is we get people to tell their God story. Mm-hmm. We encourage them to do that, and it's really interesting when they have to actually think about it and put it together in a 3-minute or 5-minute picture. That's really, really instructive. Mm-hmm. It helps them a lot, and it helps us a lot, and it shares with others and encourages others, and that's very...
Do you give them kind of an outline, or do you help them with that, or is everybody just...
Usually it's focused on something in particular. So if I have somebody's experience in mind that they've shared with me, and it pairs with it becomes a real live sermon illustration. Other times it's...
hymns.
Yeah, connected to hymns. I mean, we try to make it as practical as possible so that it's not, I have this special God story, and I perfected entire sanctification immediately. But I saw God in this way, and this is how I was changed. And the beautiful thing that we've learned over the past couple years is the part of sharing becomes a second God story for them because of the act of writing it, the act of sharing it, the Spirit brings it alive, and then people flock to them. And so that's become a practice that we've lifted up as part of the formation of connecting to the Spirit and growing as a disciple.
I think a shame in the church is that a lot of communities have lost the art of testimony.
That's our word, God's story for testimony.
Yes, absolutely. So that's exactly what she was saying, the testimony, the God story. And part of that is the stained glass language of testimony, whereas God's story connects with people so there's part of that language barrier. But, I grew up in church and we could stand up and share a God story, and it was this practice of, no one's good at anything until they do it several times, right? Like, I could not pray in public for well into my first year of seminary because I just had never done it. And so it really wasn't until I was in the hospital being forced to pray out loud that I started practicing it. And so I think, I think being able to share your story and encouraging people to do that is important. But rather what the church has done is said, we don't want to make people uncomfortable. And asking them to do that makes them uncomfortable, and we want to avoid their discomfort. And so let's just not ask them to do that because we don't want to do anything that makes people feel uncomfortable.
Most of the time, I'm uncomfortable with you being uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's true.
So it's about how you ask the question, or what the situation is. And what we found is something simple like, what's your favorite hymn, becomes a God story.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's an easy lead into it and gets around that barrier.
I think for me, and David, I don't know what you said, but it sparked something that made me think of something that to enter into this kind of conversation for me is to have this kind of curiosity. So when you say this, it piques my curiosity, and I want to hear more about that. The other day I was visiting a hospice patient, and it was my first visit, and was hoping that I could make a second visit, and I asked the person if it would be okay. And he knew that I was a chaplain. His immediate response was, well, I'm not a worshiper. And he had me there. The moment he said that, he had hooked me. That was all it took, and I was able to get back in there and talk about that. But But that curiosity to learn more about people, learn more about your story. You walked in and sat down and said you were out of your league. And my first response was, there's no way that's true, or else you wouldn't be here. And you've already said things that let me know that, you're right in there with everybody.
Heather, your initial question made me think of, if I wanted to become a Muslim, I would have no idea how to do that. I would need somebody to walk me through it, and at least, I want to see the kind of the arc here, and then can you walk with me and show me what that might look like, so that I can live that life that I feel drawn to, and so that's one of the things that we've worked on recently, to kind of outline that for people, the discipleship pathway. And it is a journey of exploration, and it is a journey of constant evangelism, because we're discovering more and more the goodness of God and how that connects to my life, and how this good God has given me good gifts to share with the world in word and deed. And so we're trying to be a little bit more intentional about that, and also allow room for flexibility in the Spirit to do what the Spirit needs to do. But we want to be able to say, explore. And then when you're ready to commit, when you've heard Jesus call you befriend, and you want to commit to living this abundant life, then we can help you through that process. And we'll be with you during it, and we know that there's lots of more questions than answers, but this is a place where you can ask those questions.
Mm-hmm. The thing that also comes to mind, to add to what Kristin asked, that if I was wanting to be a Muslim, I would not know how to. And I imagine just about everybody who sits in churches would know. I experienced something the Sunday before Christmas Eve. A lady came to our church. She said, I've lived in the neighborhood 30 years, and I told my husband and I were talking, if I ever go to church, that will be the church I will go to. And I guess they were walking in the neighborhood. And that Sunday she came, she said he didn't want to come today, but I think he would come on Christmas Eve. But she told me her name. And so Christmas Eve, they come. And I memorized her name. We don't get a lot of guests. It's one name. That's gonna stick. And she came, and when I served her communion, I said her name, and I saw her like, she was like, what happened? And the husband came, and we did it, walked out, and I shook their hand and wanted to say hello. And she said, you remembered my name. It was something that I sensed meant something to her. And I haven't seen her again. She didn't leave much. She just put one name only, so I don't know where she lives. I wanted to do the whole
white pages.
But that would be a little crazy. The thing that I think when people come in, how can we help them? I feel like there are extremes. One is we're not prepared. We have no plan, and I think a lot of our churches are that. And we don't know what to do.
Well, we've got a chili cook-off. We've got worship every Sunday. We have Wednesday night programming. Just not sure how that magically produces a
or the other side is the extreme. Just beat them down.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the middle ground, which would be expectation. On Sunday I preached about preparation. Is like a parent expecting to have a child, and you prepare, and I'm thinking maybe we want to live in this state of preparation. God is going to do something. I don't know when. But hopefully when they show up, when I have those moments, I am prepared, and I think, and there's joy in preparing, cleaning the house. When Marlene was gone, man, Zoe and I just turned the house upside down. I wish you saw it on video.
Can you tell my husband that?
Well, she didn't believe it after she came. She said, I gotta clean the house. And I'm like, girl, we cleaned it.
And then we messed it back up.
But I think
it's called memories.
When it comes to evangelism, and somebody said it, retrieving, owning this thing again. Microsoft has evangelists, right? IBM has evangelists,
they use that word.
And maybe finding new language, but there's something joyful about it, and I am thankful that there's a foundation, because if there's resources out there, ways to be trained, sign us up, because we don't know what to do. I will say that for our church, we don't know what to do.
That online class is a really good place to start to get a good, I guess you do it regularly.
We do it in the spring and the fall.
Yeah, get a group of people from your church, figure out who has the spiritual
It's good.
gift of evangelism, and just go do that together. 6 weeks.
We'll sign up.
Gotta do it.
I was going to add, we have a food bank that actually happens in our church twice a month, and about 100 people each Thursday. There's 2 Thursdays a month, I guess, first and third, and people come, and we've actually seen people move from the food bank, kind of the road, the river, kind of the road, and people are moving from there and are coming into the church.
Awesome.
And we're beginning to see people connect, and some of our ladies have done a good job at connecting them. So I guess what I'm also saying is that people are actually doing this stuff, just that we may not have the language or the intentionality that this is what we're doing. But I am seeing we have members today.
I think you need to recognize that.
Yeah.
You need to celebrate that.
Celebrate
It's
it.
already happening.
Yeah.
So that's a great opportunity to share that. I mean, you have the luxury of sharing it from the pulpit. Let me tell you what I'm seeing right now and how amazing this is.
And even if you have the
You know?
structure, but you don't have people who love and who want to invest and to be a part of, the structure doesn't matter, right? So you gotta start with the people that you have there. It's already there.
Well, I think the people is the key, because I think the assumption is, like, especially for these churches that say, like, that literally have no path in place, have no written policy, have nothing. Just the hope is, well, we're all Christians, so surely we'll be kind and welcoming. That's not always the case. If you're not training people to be kind and welcoming, it doesn't come naturally, especially if they're not familiar with visitors. We have the opposite problem where we have a lot of visitors, but it's hard to tell who the visitors are. And so the fear is I approach a visitor and maybe they've actually been coming here for 20 years and then I'm embarrassed. And again, we don't like discomfort, so why don't I just not say anything at all? And another problem is the like Kristin said, we have a newsletter. Like, they can get involved at whatever pace they want to get involved. They have access to our website. We don't want to discomfort them. We don't want to hound them. It's very hands-off, very passive. And the danger with that is people don't know what steps they're supposed to take. And if someone wants to come to a community because they're seeking belonging, well, first of all, they don't know where to park, and there's no signage, and they don't know where the bathroom is, and they are not sure when to stand and when to sit, and they don't know who the worship leaders are because nobody's introducing themselves, and they've never heard of an affirmation of faith, so they stand up and everybody's saying this thing, that's not...
the virgin birth, so
that
how
does
can I
not
say this?
Yeah, in the Catholic Church. What the Catholic Church? I'm not in the Catholic Church, am I? So when we're not explaining, we're not teaching, then that's not...
That was big for me when I first went to a mainline church and
Yes.
a Catholic church. I say, not me. Not me, I'm not Catholic. Right? And actually when we had the refugee people come to Brentwood, I said, oh, hey, guys, the Catholic
We say
means
this, that's
Asterisks right here in the hymnal.
lowercase.
Orientation to worship.
Yes. But but the assumption is that people understand and they'll get involved. But if we're not intentional about plugging them in and laying out a pathway that says, here are some options for you, then it just doesn't feel well.
Well, and that power of invitation comes up.
Yeah.
That's on our roadmap as well.
Yes.
Is that, it doesn't take much, but it does take one person to make an invitation.